Let's talk about something that might have flown under the radar during the Steelers' preseason clash against the Buccaneers. A game where, yes, Pittsburgh technically lost by 3 points, but let's be honest here, nobody should be losing sleep over preseason scores. What matters is the process, the development, and the little clues we get about how this team is starting to shape its identity for the upcoming season. And in this particular case, there was one play, just one moment tucked away in a mostly forgettable exhibition game that speaks volumes, not about 2024, but about where this offense might be heading in 2025. Now, what caught my eye wasn't some highlight reel touchdown or a huge defensive stop. It was a single play action pass. But not just any play action. This was a textbook execution of a concept pulled directly from the Kyle Shanahan playbook. You know the one. The kind of thing that's been terrorizing defenses across the league for years. And the Steelers didn't just draw it up. They ran it with intent, precision, and even more importantly, they ran it with the right personnel. Here's the setup. Skylar Thompson was under center, and the Steelers lined up in 12 personnel. That's 1 running back, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers. Connor Hayward goes in motion, and suddenly they shift into a balanced 2-by-2 look. It's a condensed formation, bringing everybody in tight to the line of scrimmage. Up top, you've got Scotty Miller. On the bottom, Roman Wilson. And that's where things get interesting. What they called was a variation of a play-action concept famously known as burner. It's not a new concept by any means. This thing's been around since the early days of the Shanahan tree. But it's still devastating when run correctly. And that's exactly what happened. Here's how it breaks down. The primary read on this play is Scotty Miller. He runs a deep pylon route, sometimes stemming inside first before breaking sharply outside. That's important because if the defense is in cover 4, which Tampa Bay was, then running at the inside defender before breaking can manipulate those coverage rules. If that safety bites on the inside stem or hesitates even for a second, you got a shot to break open deep. But again, Miller isn't necessarily expected to get the ball here. His job is more about clearing space. Because the real threat on this play is Roman Wilson. While Miller is stretching the field vertically, Wilson runs a high cross underneath. And not a lazy drag. This is a full-speed, deep-developing over route that attacks the soft underbelly of the zone once the linebackers have been pulled up by the play fake. That's the secret sauce. The moment the quarterback turns his back and fakes the handoff, those second-level defenders, the linebackers, start creeping up, honoring the run. That hesitation is exactly what the offense wants. Because as soon as those backers take even one step forward, Roman Wilson's route is already gaining leverage behind them. The idea here is elegant in its simplicity. You get Miller clearing out the top, forcing both deep defenders to respect the possibility of a go or pylon. And while they're backpedaling, Wilson comes flying across from the opposite side, carving right through the now vacated intermediate zone. If timed correctly, the quarterback has a wide window to deliver the throw, and Wilson has room to turn upfield and make something happen after the catch. And it nearly worked to perfection. Almost. Skylar Thompson did everything right. The fake, the read, the patience. But if there's one critique, it's the timing on the release. Ideally, you want to hit that back foot and let it rip. No hesitation. Let Wilson catch in stride and turn upfield. But instead, there was just a slight hitch. Just enough of a delay to allow the throw to drift a bit too close to the sideline. By the time Wilson makes the catch, he's almost out of bounds, with no space left to turn it up. That little detail changes a possible chunk gain into a limited one. Still a nice play, no doubt, but it could have been better. But let's zoom out for a second. Why does this play even matter? It's preseason. Why should we care? Well, it matters for 2 big reasons. First, Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator. If you've been paying attention, this kind of play is straight out of his Tennessee and Atlanta playbooks. This is the kind of offense he wants to build. One that lives off play action, attacks the middle of the field, and gives his quarterbacks defined reads. But last year, he couldn't do much of that. Between Russell Wilson's reluctance to throw over the middle and Justin Fields' inconsistency, Smith was limited. He didn't have the personnel to run this kind of stuff with regularity. So to see it appear in preseason, that's significant. Even if they're only using a tiny portion of the playbook right now, This tells us that the bones of that offense are being installed. They're laying the foundation for what's to come. And more importantly, they're matching scheme to talent. Which brings us to reason number 2, Roman Wilson. This dude has flown way too far under the radar. He was a third-round pick, and his rookie season was wiped out by injury. Total non-factor last year. But now, he's healthy, and he's in the plans. And this is the exact kind of route he excelled at in college. He's not a guy you want trying to win jump balls against press coverage every down. You want him in motion. You want him crossing the field. You want to let him use that sub-4.4 speed and create separation in space. What makes this even more interesting is how clearly the coaching staff is trying to get him going. These aren't garbage time snaps. This is a designed concept built to get Wilson the ball in rhythm. He's not just running cardio out there. He's part of the read, the second read, to be precise, but a primary target based on how the defense reacts. And what's encouraging is that he ran the route with discipline. No lazy angle, no tipping the route early. He forced the defenders to honor multiple possibilities before breaking it off, and that's how you win against zone. That's how you create space. That's how you make a name for yourself. And look, the defense on this play, yeah, it wasn't great at all. You've got 4 guys dropping deep to cover 1 vertical threat. No idea what the communication was on the back end, but it broke down completely. Still, you can only beat what's in front of you, and this play worked exactly as it was designed to. And let's not forget, this was first down. So even if Wilson wasn't open, Thompson had a check down option sitting underneath. No need to force it. Live to fight another down. But because the play was schemed right and Wilson ran it the way he's supposed to, the window opened and the throw got there. That's what you want in a real offensive system. Not just backyard ball, not just broken plays or one-on-one heroics. You want layered concepts that build off each other and punish defenses for playing vanilla zone. And this is just one of many tools in Arthur Smith's arsenal. This burner, look with a pylon clear and high cross, is just one variation. There's rage, where that outside route fakes the pylon but then turns into a post. There's rider, where you stem inside before breaking upfield. There are a dozen ways to dress up the same basic idea. Stretch the defense vertically, create horizontal conflict underneath, and make life easier for the quarterback. That's what this is all about. Give your quarterback answers. Give your receiver space. Use play action to manipulate the second level. And when you've got a guy like Roman Wilson with legit speed and smooth route running ability, these are the kinds of plays that can get him going. We've seen what this type of offense can do when it's firing on all cylinders. Look around the league. The teams that lean into this style, that marry run game with layered play action, those are the teams that make life miserable for defenses. And if Pittsburgh is really serious about turning the page and modernizing their attack, this is how it starts. And again, we're not saying this one play is going to define the season, but it's a hint, a glimpse, a clue about what's being built behind the scenes. Arthur Smith is bringing a very specific flavor to this offense, and now that he has a quarterback room that seems more willing and more able to attack the middle of the field, we're going to start seeing concepts like this pop up more and more. Roman Wilson might not be a household name yet, but if this is any indication, they've got plans for him. And they're not afraid to scheme him open, which is exactly what this team has needed for years. Not just relying on receivers to win one-on-ones, but using structure, timing, and design to move the ball. This is the future of the Steelers' offense. It's starting to take shape, and it's looking a lot like something we've seen succeed elsewhere in the league. Now, if you're a Steelers fan and you've been following this team closely over the last few seasons, you know exactly why this matters. Because for far too long, this offense has been stuck in neutral. Stale concepts, predictable patterns, and very little creativity when it came to manipulating defenses or building passing windows. It was frustrating to watch, especially when you saw other teams around the league, like San Francisco, Miami, even Los Angeles, using similar personnel but producing far more explosive plays simply because their schemes were designed to take advantage of space, leverage, and timing. And that's the part that really stands out with this play against Tampa Bay. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't even a scoring play. But it was smart football. It was strategic. It was the kind of design that creates mismatches without needing superhuman plays from your quarterback or receiver. It was calculated. And more than that, it was coordinated, something that, honestly, we just haven't seen consistently in Pittsburgh's offense for quite some time. Now, let's circle back to Arthur Smith for a moment. There's been a lot of conversation about what he brings to the table, especially after his stint in Atlanta. And yes, the results there were mixed. But dig a little deeper, and you'll see a guy who has a very clear identity as a play caller. He wants to run the ball. He wants to use that run threat to pull defenders out of position. And most importantly, he wants to attack defenses vertically and horizontally at the same time. He's not afraid to run long developing routes. He's not afraid to pull guards or tight ends across the formation. He wants to make defenses think. He wants to make them hesitate. That's exactly what this play did. The initial motion from Hayward moved the defense slightly, and then the play action froze the linebackers just long enough for the crosser to get behind them. That split second is all you need when the timing is right. When everything clicks, that hesitation turns into separation. And when you have fast receivers like Roman Wilson who can cover ground quickly, you can turn those short windows into chunk plays. But again, this isn't just about one route or one player. It's about layering. It's about building an offense where every piece complements the next. The burner concept is great on its own, sure. But when it becomes part of a larger menu of plays that all look the same out of the huddle, same personnel, same formations, same motions, that's when things get really difficult for defenses. That's when you start winning pre-snap. That's when you force opponents to guess. And when they guess wrong, you hit them with the high cross or the post or the deep shot, and it's over. So, you're probably wondering, how does this fit with the rest of the Steelers' offensive pieces? Where does someone like Russell Wilson come in? Or Justin Fields, for that matter? Well, that's where things get really intriguing. Because for the first time in a long time, the Steelers have a quarterback room that actually gives them options. Russell Wilson might not be the MVP candidate he once was, but he still has the arm strength, the mobility, and the veteran knowledge to operate a system like this. If he buys into what Arthur Smith is building, if he's willing to stay on schedule, sell the play-action fakes, and trust the reads, then this can work. It really can. But here's the caveat. Russell has historically not loved throwing over the middle. That's just a fact. It's been a criticism since his Seattle days. Whether it's a vision thing or a comfort thing, he's tended to avoid that area of the field. And that's fine when you have DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett winning on the outside. But in this offense, if you don't attack the middle, you're leaving yards and points on the table. Now, that's where Justin Fields could factor in. Because while Fields still has to prove he can be consistent from the pocket, he's younger, more physically dynamic, and maybe more coachable at this stage. He might be more open to growing into this system, adapting to it, learning it piece by piece. If he can develop that timing and anticipation that play-action offenses require, he could thrive. He doesn't need to become a 5-read progression guy overnight. He just needs to be able to run these concepts, hit that crosser, and keep the chains moving. And that's the beauty of this system. It doesn't ask your quarterback to be a superhero. It just asks him to follow the plan. Trust the design. Throw to the open man. And when you can pair that with a competent run game, a solid offensive line, and receivers who understand leverage and spacing, suddenly everything opens up. Which brings us back, again, to Roman Wilson. Because this play wasn't just about his speed. It was about how he ran the route, how he maintained his line, how he forced the corner to respect every possibility before breaking inside. That's the kind of subtle execution that separates college players from professionals. That's what gets you on the field. That's what earns the trust of your quarterback and your coaches. He didn't just get open. He got open within the structure of the offense. And let's be real, the Steelers need that. They need guys who can win in structure. They've had explosive receivers before, but too often it felt like they were freelancing, running off script, hoping for a miracle. That's not sustainable. What you want is predictability. Not in the sense that the defense knows what's coming, but in the sense that the quarterback knows exactly where his guy is going to be. That's what builds chemistry. That's what leads to efficient drives. That's how you move the ball in December when the weather gets nasty and the margin for error gets smaller. So when you see a play like this in the preseason, even against a vanilla defense, even with a backup quarterback, it matters. It's a sign that the pieces are being put in place. That's how you win in today's NFL. It's not just about running fast or throwing far. It's about putting stress on the defense every single snap, about making them communicate, about forcing them to cover every blade of grass. And when you can combine that with a quarterback who understands the reads, a line that holds up just long enough, and receivers who can separate, you're going to find success. And listen, no one's saying the Steelers are suddenly going to be a top 5 offense this year. That's a stretch. There's still a lot of work to be done. But what this play showed, what it hinted at, is that the offense is finally moving in the right direction. They're installing concepts that work, concepts that have stood the test of time, and they're matching those concepts to the strengths of their players. Roman Wilson's strength is speed. But more than that, it's his ability to use that speed intelligently, to threaten defenders vertically and then break it off cleanly, to understand when to bend a route, when to stay flat, when to sell the fake. That's high-level receiver play. And if he can stay healthy, if he continues to develop, if the quarterbacks trust him, he could become a real weapon in this offense. Not the focal point, maybe, but a dangerous secondary option who can flip the field in a heartbeat. And that's what you want. You want threats at every level. You want plays like this one, a burner concept with a clear out and a high cross, to be one of many in the arsenal. You want to run it from different formations, with different personnel, against different coverages. Because the more you can do that, the harder it becomes to defend. The more stress you put on the safeties, the more space opens up underneath. The more your offense becomes layered, flexible, and explosive. So yeah, maybe it was just a single throw in a meaningless game. But if you watched closely, if you understood what was happening beneath the surface, you saw something much bigger. You saw a sign, a clue, a moment where everything clicked. And if this team keeps building on that moment, if they keep stacking plays like this, then the rest of the league better start paying attention. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The buzz around Pittsburgh has taken on a life of its own after whispers from within the Steelers organization began circulating this week, suggesting that head coach Mike Tomlin finally lost his patience with one of his players and may have uttered the words that no professional athlete ever wants to hear. He doesn't play with me anymore. Reports remain unconfirmed, but insiders close to the locker room insist that the situation has been brewing for some time, pointing to subtle tension during practices and small but telling interactions during recent games. While Tomlin has always prided himself on being a player's coach, known for his loyalty and his ability to connect with personalities of every type, the current climate suggests that even his tolerance has limits. In Pittsburgh, a city where the Steelers are more than just a football team, but part of the very identity of the community, any perceived rift between a respected coach and a member of the roster creates shockwaves. Speculation has been rampant on talk radio and across online forums, with fans dissecting every moment from the sidelines and debating which player might have crossed the invisible line that caused Tomlin to reach a breaking point. What makes this rumor particularly gripping is the way it contrasts with Tomlin's reputation for measured responses and public composure, even under the most intense scrutiny. He has navigated contract disputes, star players demanding trades, and heated sideline arguments without ever letting personal frustrations become the story. Yet the notion that Tomlin himself would allegedly call time on a player's future under his watch suggests a deeper, more personal rupture that extends beyond the typical coach-player disagreements. Some speculate that this outburst, if it truly happened, could stem from a string of disciplinary issues or a pattern of disregard for team culture, something Tomlin has always protected with vigilance. Others wonder whether it was the result of a singular explosive incident in practice, one so severe that the coach's authority demanded an uncompromising response. In Pittsburgh circles, people are remembering past controversies involving players whose talent was overshadowed by off-field distractions, and they are beginning to draw parallels. For Tomlin to reportedly say a player will never again suit up under him, the assumption is that the offense was not minor, but monumental, sparking debates about where the team goes from here and what this means for the locker room's fragile balance. The identity of the player at the heart of this alleged fallout remains the greatest mystery, fueling endless debates across social media platforms and fan podcasts. Some point toward high-profile stars who have carried both the team's hopes and their fair share of controversy in the past, suggesting that a single outburst may have reopened old wounds. Others insist that it could be a role player, someone not often in the spotlight, but whose behavior behind closed doors finally wore down the coach's patience. Without confirmation, the narrative remains open to interpretation, and each theory seems more dramatic than the last. Regardless of who the player might be, the central theme is that Tomlin's authority, normally unquestioned and revered, has been tested in a way that could set a precedent for how the Steelers manage discipline moving forward. If indeed a line has been crossed, fans are wondering whether Tomlin's statement is final or if cooler heads will prevail over time. The larger question is whether this rumored ultimatum marks a turning point in Tomlin's leadership style. A harder edge from a coach who has long balanced discipline with empathy, but who now appears, at least in whispers, to have reached a definitive breaking point. This development has created a new layer of uncertainty for a team already under scrutiny as it seeks to reestablish itself among the AFC's elite contenders. The Steelers have been trying to navigate a competitive division where every slip can define the trajectory of a season, and distractions of this magnitude often ripple far beyond the individual involved. A fractured relationship between coach and player can quickly erode locker room trust, especially if other members of the team feel caught between loyalty to a teammate and respect for the coach's authority. The organization itself now finds itself at a crossroads. Should the rumor prove accurate, management may be forced to choose between backing Tomlin's hard line or attempting to smooth tensions with the player in question. Neither option comes without risk, and the team's leadership knows that fan perception will play a significant role in shaping the narrative. In Pittsburgh, football is as much about culture as it is about wins, and the image of solidarity has long been a pillar of the franchise. A public split, even if rooted in a private disagreement, threatens to challenge that identity and raise difficult questions about what values ultimately drive decisions within the Steelers' hierarchy. For now, the story remains a swirling mix of rumor, speculation, and anxious anticipation, with every whisper magnified under the bright spotlight of Pittsburgh's football obsession. Until someone within the organization steps forward with clarity, the situation will continue to fuel endless conversation among fans, analysts, and even rival teams eager to exploit any hint of turmoil. What is clear, however, is that Mike Tomlin's supposed words, if indeed they were spoken, have struck a nerve precisely because they sound so uncharacteristic. A coach who has built a career on composure and stability is now at the center of a storm fueled by the possibility that even he has limits. Whether this moment becomes a footnote in the season or a defining turning point will depend on how the coming weeks unfold, both on the field and in the meeting rooms where relationships are tested and reputations are forged. For a city that thrives on its team's resilience, this rumor embodies both fear and fascination. Fear that cracks may be forming within the Steelers' foundation, and fascination with the drama of watching how one of the league's most respected coaches responds when pushed to his breaking point. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.